Roe v. Wade overturn. And we've got a question in the chat about it. But, this was also, Jason and I were chatting about this before you hopped on, wanting to know kind of how that's hitting with your generation, because of course, you're going to be impacted by this for much longer, than people in previous generations. And do you feel like that's gonna boost even more young people to kind of get into the political sphere? And how do you think how are you processing it, and how are some of your peers processing it right now?
Yeah, so we had that leaked draft, so we kind of all knew it was coming. But still, waking up on Friday, I was still kind of surprised and in shock, as were a lot of my friends. This was actually an issue where basically all my friends knew about it, and were kind of engaging that discussion, even though maybe they usually don't talk about politics. And all my friends are kind of left-leaning, so they all disagreed with the judgment, the decision. But I think that I don't know if it'll motivate people who weren't going to vote anyway to then vote. I don't know, but it has sparked a movement, especially on TikTok, where people are offering to help. So for example, there's this TikTok I saw that was like, if you ever want to come to New Jersey to go camping or to the beach, I have a spare bedroom and I will drive you to go camping or to the beach. And it would kind of go like that. And so obviously that would kind of be like, oh, if you ever need an abortion in New Jersey, it's protected. So I have a spare bedroom and I'll help you. And so I've seen a lot of that within my generation, which is kind of more like grassroots organizing, helping, rather than electoral politics. The decision itself, I am really interested in the law. So there's kind of like a legal aspect, but I can understand the legal kind of reasoning behind it, that they don't think that the 14th Amendment due process clause implies a right to privacy. Now, I don't know what the history of that, which is what the court looks at. But what Clarence Thomas wrote in his concurring opinion about how that will now, basically he said that we should look at gay marriage, sodomy, and one more thing I'm forgetting. I don't know if either of you know it. Something else based on the right to privacy. Contraception.
Yes. Yeah. Access to contraception.
Yeah. So Roe v. Wade, I think a lot of people focused on how it's the right to an abortion, but it established the right to privacy. And a lot of case law based on those three: contraception, gay marriage, and sodomy, and that's what you do in your bedroom. That's based on Roe v. Wade, in the precedent it established. So it maybe some men think that this doesn't affect them. It does, because your other rights that were based on Roe and the right to privacy are now jeopardized. And that's, really kind of scary to think about. How far are we going to go back? And I don't see, I think the other thing that's really enraged me is not the decision enraged me, but even more is the kind of democratic response to it. I saw tweets about Nancy Pelosi was reading a poem, and then the Democrats were saying, "God bless America."
Yeah, they sang.
Like, what are you talking about? What do you mean, God bless America? Are you? I was like, what? Are you like? I was speechless. Like,
and then they went on vacation. They were like, oh, yeah, can't do anything about it. Yeah.
And then I think they think we're dumb because they could do something right now. They could end the filibuster and then codify Roe right now. And they're acting like they're helpless and like, oh, you have to vote next election and you have to vote for Democrats.
Hold on.
And
what can they do?
End the filibuster.
Okay, and then it codifies Roe. How? Explain that, because I do not know this.
So the filibuster makes it so you have to have 60 votes in the Senate to pass anything.
Yep.
Obviously, they don't have 60 votes in the Senate to codify Roe. but they could get to 50. Joe Manchin is, whatever. Cinema, I feel like would. And then Susan Collins would probably go over. Lisa Murkowski is an option to go over. So you would get to 50 some way. And so if you end the filibuster, you would only need 50 votes to pass whatever legislation you want. Because it's majority rule, and then the vice president will come in as the tiebreaker to get to 51.
And that would reverse what the Supreme Court just did?
It wouldn't reverse what they did. So because the right to an abortion was based on it was a constitutional right, as what in Roe, that's what they established. But if you just make it federal legislation, it would just be like something that the federal government says you have a right to. It wouldn't be constitutional.
Good answer. I was just testing you. I knew all of that.
Yeah, because like the Supreme Court is bound by their interpretation of the Constitution.
That's something where I also watched the Supreme Court hearings, as a nerd. And so I remember which justice it was, but they were talking about the checkpoints they go through and when evaluating case. And I always thought that one of them would be public opinion or the impact on the public based on a decision. And so a lot of times, the reason that they haven't been considering overturning Roe before is because to take away a right is very that impacts a lot of people and upends, livelihoods and your access to something you thought you had, forever. And so now the court is kind of saying we don't care about public opinion, and to have any branch of government say we don't care about public opinion at all. I mean, I get that they're supposed to evaluate the Constitution, but I think public opinion does matter, especially when that's who it's affecting. And I guess that kind of is antithetical to the Supreme Court itself. It's supposed to be insulated from the public. That's why it's lifetime appointments. I don't really know how you would fix that other than just doing term limits, but even term limits is like you're just waiting. They're just gonna resign under whatever president they align with more, and that person will just appoint someone who's basically the same person in what they're going to vote with. So and our system, so we are also in a common law system, which means a lot of the law that we live under is established through the courts in addition to what's established through the legislature. So that's in other countries that have more of a parliamentary system. They also have a common law system, but they aren't kind of binded by what the Constitution says in necessarily. They have the ability to look at more of what they think the law should be, rather than more of what the Constitution or the founders, that's crazy to me as well. It's like, you have to look at what the founders think it should be. Like these 10 people in a room 250 years ago. I mean, who cares?
It didn't believe that anybody except for like wealthy white men had any kind of rights to anything.
Yeah, and then people, I mean, there's someone I follow on Twitter. His name is Elie Mystal. He's a justice correspondent for The Nation, and he has a book that basically argues that you should get rid of the Constitution and rewrite it. And he was saying how there's women they're not anywhere the word woman isn't in the Constitution. The Constitution was supporting the institution of slavery. Mm-hmm. So why are we living under this document that didn't recognize more than half of the American population? I just don't know. But that's another thing, is although I'd love to, work and redo the Constitution, I don't think that's ever going to happen in my lifetime. And so I just have resorted to, learning about it and learning how it works, and then kind of playing within that system. But for sure, if in any other world, we would just scrap it and start something new.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen
No.
anytime soon at all. But it'd be great. But who'd be writing it? That'd be a little scary.
I mean, yeah. I mean, who wrote it back then? It's already scary.
Yeah. But wow, now with the money influences, I mean, as much as it is now, geez.
Oh yeah.
You're right. I guess you would have to get the money at, like, fix that, and then have a representative, I guess, delegation, of people, all different demographics, and that people trusted, and then they would have to come together and do the writing. Which
maybe we should just be a true democracy where everybody gets a vote, and those votes actually count, and you use that as everything.
Oh my God, it makes me insane when people talk about America as a democracy. We're not a democracy. We're a republic. And that's just like factually, we're not a democracy. Yeah, I wish, and if people, I would do so much research on like what the difference was between a democracy and a republic, and it'd be so hard for me to like figure it out. But at some point I figured out, like, oh, okay, like democracy means like every person has like their own, they vote specific, like directly on whatever is being the topic, and then in republic you vote for someone who will then vote for you in terms of whatever the topic is, which I don't know. I can see the merits of the system because it's, I guess, it's supposed to be more efficient, right? The whole point is, instead of 300 million people voting for something, those people are voting for someone who will then vote for them, which is then more efficient. But is it really more efficient?
You mean the college? Are you talking about the electoral college, as opposed to?
So I was talking more about like just like legislation in general. So like in Greece, where they had a democracy, they would need like all the citizens would vote themselves into like whatever thing they were talking about, discussing. But that would take so logistically, like that's a lot for that many people to do.
Well, maybe not with computers. I mean, I'm sorry, but
yeah,
nowadays it seems like everybody's got a phone, or at least access to a phone, a smartphone. But that would be like rewriting the Constitution, to be honest.
Yeah. It's depressing to think about all this and how much our system is broken inherently. But it's important to just kind of acknowledge it and then move on and figure out how you can work within it.
And the fact that if everybody agreed that it was broken and knew that they could do something about it, which they can, and all agreed to do something about it, that we actually could fix things. That's the really frustrating thing.
Yeah, just if more people got engaged, generally, like that could help, because as we talk about, so few people are engaging with this stuff.